Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunday School. Let's grab our coffees and our Bibles and let's dig right in, shall we? And today we are in Isaiah 46, so go ahead and turn there if you want. I will also have it on the screen for you. And the topic today is who can you trust? Who do you trust? We're going to be reading the whole thing through once, and then I'll look through it a little more closely. So let's go ahead and read chapter 46. Bel boweth down, Nebo stoopeth. Their idols were upon the beasts and upon the cattle. Your carriages were heavy laden. They are a burden to the weary beast. They stoop, they bow down together. They could not deliver the burden, but themselves are gone into captivity. Hearken unto me, O house of Jacob, and all the remnant of the house of Israel, which are born by me from the belly, which are carried from the womb. And even to your old age I am he, and even to hoary hairs, or frosty hairs, I will carry you. I have made, and I will bear, even I will carry, and will deliver you. To whom will ye liken me, and make me equal, and compare me, that we may be like? They lavish gold out of the bag, they weigh silver in the balance, and hire a goldsmith, and he maketh it a god. They fall down, yea, they worship. They bear him upon the shoulder, they carry him, and set him in his place, and he standeth. From his place shall he not remove. Yea, one shall cry unto him, yet he cannot answer, nor save him out of his trouble. Remember this, and show yourselves men. Bring it again to mind, O ye transgressors. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my counsel from a far country. Yea, I have spoken it, I will also bring it to pass. I have purposed it, I will also do it. Hearken unto me, ye stout-hearted, that are far from righteousness. I bring near my righteousness. It shall not be far off, and my salvation shall not tarry. I will place salvation in Zion, for Israel my glory. Let's look at those first couple of verses here. This is about the idols that the Israelites are worshiping and how useless and powerless they are. Bel and Nebo are two false gods common to the Babylonians. You might recognize those names in Belshazzar and Nebuchadnezzar. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar means Nebu, protect my son. Belshazzar means Bel, protect the king. They're asking for the God's help in protecting themselves and their children when they name them. And yet these gods can't do anything. These idols are absolutely useless. Here you see some of the idols that would have been very common in Babylon. Here's one of Nabu, and it's this giant stone idol. Notice what the verses say. It says that the idols are heavy burdens on the cattle. So every once in a while, at special occasions, holidays, king's anniversary, that kind of thing, they would load up these giant idols in ox carts and parade them around the city. Just imagine what a life-size idol made out of stone or gold even would weigh. It's very heavy. And imagine the difficulty in getting those onto a massive ox cart being pulled by who knows how many teams of oxen. Isaiah says that the carriages are heavy laden. They are a burden to the beast. These poor cows have to drag, this 20-foot tall metal or stone statue around. Poor animals, they have to do that. They stoop, they bow down together. The cows here are so burdened by the idols, they can't even deliver the burden. I think this is just one of the funny things that Isaiah says. He has several rants against idols, polemics against idols, and how silly it is to trust the idols. The idols are a burden to the people who make them. Instead of the gods carrying the burden of the people are carrying the burden of the idols. People made the idols, and people are laid down by them. And this says that the idols will be gone into captivity. That's very interesting. I think his reference here is not just that the idols will be defeated. I think he's talking about how, when they went on parade, how they kept the idols from toppling over. Obviously, that would be very, well, it wouldn't look good. It'd be very embarrassing if your god fell over, fell off the ox cart. In another place, Isaiah talks about nailing the idol's feet down so that they don't topple over. You nail them to the table so they could stand upright. You notice a human figure would be a little top heavy, especially one that's 20, 30, 40 feet tall. And they had some massive idols. Just read Daniel. There was a very large gold idol of Nebuchadnezzar made. So quite possibly he's talking about maybe they were tying down the idols to the ox carts here, and Isaiah's making fun of them. You have to tie up your idols before you worship them, but they're all tied up like they're going into captivity. Another thing on the same topic that Isaiah's been talking about a lot is that Israel will go into captivity for their sin. Israel will become slaves again, like they were slaves in Egypt. This time they'll be slaves in Babylon. And I think Isaiah here is saying that even though Israel will go into captivity, that does not mean the idols won. It does not mean that the false gods defeated the true God, because those false gods are going to go into captivity as well. Now, I doubt very many Americans actually worship idols anymore, although I was at an Indian restaurant the other day and we saw a couple idols there. I don't know if they were actually for worship or just for decoration. I'm sure there are a few people who still do worship idols in America. I know it is much more common in other places of the world, especially Asia. There's a lot of Hinduism and Buddhism there, and they do use idols in that. But what do we trust in? It's been said that anything that you put your trust in is your idol. What do you think will give you a good life? In America, the American dream is to have enough money to be comfortable and then a little bit more. Have a nice career, have a car, maybe 2 cars and a boat, maybe some other nice toys that you could play with, brand new Xbox, all that kind of things. It's possible to be rich and have a terrible life, and it's possible to be poor and have a wonderful life. Your money is not something that can save you. In fact, your money is a burden to you sometimes. Your money can cause more problems than it fixes. Modern Americans trust in their jobs, how their jobs will provide for them. Well, a lot of people lost their jobs in this last pandemic. Many people who still have their jobs are not doing nearly as well as they hoped. The economy is slowing down. And if that was your trust is gone. If you're trusting in your money, so many things can happen to your money. If you trust in the American way of life, well, that's changing too, isn't it? Nothing that you put your trust in is worthy of that trust, except for God. In great contrast to the idols that we have to carry and we have to take care of, God is the one who made us, and he's the one who will take care of us. Hearken unto me, O house of Jacob, and all the remnant of the house of Israel, which are born by me from the belly, which are carried from the womb. Even to your old age I am he, and even to your snowy hairs will I carry you. I have made and I will bear, even I will carry and will deliver you. God said that he has taken care of us since we were babies, even before then, since we were in our mother's womb. Here is a pro-life statement, although that is a little besides the point we're making right here. But God cares about us and has since before we were born and will continue till the very end of our life. Not only does God care about each one of us individually, but the nation of Israel was carried by God from its very infancy. It would not exist without multiple divine interventions. Isaac was a miracle baby. They all would have starved to death without Joseph feeding them in the famine. They would have stayed slaves in Egypt until God sent Moses and the 10 plagues and the Red Sea. Israel would not exist without God. Well, neither would any one of us exist without God. I think it's very interesting here. It is a pro-life statement that God has taken care of us while we were in our mother's womb. God carries us. See, we make idols, we have to carry them. We set up our career, and then we spend all our time at work and don't have any time for home. We put all our decisions into making more money or more popularity or whatever it happens to be. Our idols consume our life and destroy it. But God gives us life. Many adults today, especially in America, think they are so self-sufficient. Yeah, babies need a lot of help. Babies need help to do everything. And the elderly, they might need some extra care, some extra medical care. You might need Social Security to supplement their paychecks, but a young person in the prime of their life, at the top of their career, life is going great. It's all about me. I can do it all by myself. No, you can't. No, you can't. We all need to lean on the everlasting arms. So, such an American thing to think that I can pull myself up on my own bootstraps. And yet God says, I've been the one holding you up since before you were born till now, and I will to the end of your life. Are you leaning on the everlasting arms? The idols that burden us can't help us at all. They're nothing but, like here in Pilgrim's Progress, a big burden on our backs. To whom will ye liken me, and make me equal, and compare me, that we may be like? They lavish gold out of the bag, and weigh silver in the balance, and hire a goldsmith, and he maketh it a god. They fall down, yea, they worship. They bear him upon the shoulder, they carry him, and set him in his place, and he standeth. From his place shall he not remove. Yea, one shall cry unto him, yet can he not answer, nor save him out of his trouble. There's a few different places where Isaiah talks about the silliness of worshiping something that you made or that you hired someone else to make. Here, you take your gold and your silver and you go to the goldsmith, and part of your coins go to paying him, and the other part you worship. How does that make sense? How come some of your gold is used as everyday currency and the rest of your gold is your God? Okay? One thing that everyone else would do would be comparing idols to idols. All idols in the world are fairly similar. They have their own stories, they have their own myths, but here's an idol, you pray to it, it never responds. Maybe you have a streak of good luck and you say the idol helped with that. Maybe you had some bad luck and you say, oh, I must have made the idol angry. But the idol never responds. So you weigh out the gold and the silver, you hire someone, he makes an idol, then you fall down and worship it. And then when you're done worshiping it, you pick it up and carry it and bring it back home because it can't walk there by itself. It is your burden to bear. You must pick up this heavy item and bring it home, and you put it on its table. And can it move? Nope. It says he stands in his place and he can't move from there. If he can't even take a couple steps, how can he deliver you from all your problems? They can't. There are so many problems in this world that nothing can save us from except for the Lord. In your day of trouble, your idols cannot be relied on. You could lose your job through no fault of your own. You could be at the top of your game, doing an excellent job, and your company goes out of business and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not your fault. So you go around looking for more work, and so is everyone else because there's high unemployment. And even if you're really good at something, have a great skill, you still might not get hired. You can't trust your job. Your retirement investments could be very helpful, or they could be invested in something like Enron, and it all goes away. If you have time sometime, look up the South Seas bubble. There was a stock investment way in the early days. I believe this was early 1600s, early to mid 1600s. And this guy made up, it's basically an Enron story, way back when people actually dressed like that. And people lost millions. The whole economy of England was absolutely destroyed. Even, I believe it was, I don't remember which monarch it was, but one of the monarchs of England lost all their money. It was a terrible time. Things might seem like a sure deal. They don't always work out for you. And then if that was your trust, it's let you down. Your house could burn down. Your house could have pipes burst, destroy it. Uh, Money's not going to save you then. If it all gets burnt down, you might have a really nice car and someone rear ends it again through no fault of your own. You can't trust the things in this world to give you a good life. Besides, money and items, they can solve some problems. Money can pay to fix something that gets broken, but money can't solve all the biggest problems in life. What do you do when you or a loved one is dealing with sickness or disability or some terrible accident? Yeah, money can pay the hospital bills, but money's not going to soothe your heart. What happens when you have a rebellious child who wants nothing to do with you or with God? I've seen many families deal with that before, and money's not going to help with that. What do you do if a loved one commits suicide, like we saw not too long ago, not very far from here? Your career's not going to help you with that. What do you do when a spouse cheats on you, or you go through a time of discouragement or depression? Where can I go but to the Lord? Nothing on this earth can solve those problems. Jesus can. We have a God who can save us in our trouble. Remember this and show yourselves men. Bring it again to mind, O ye transgressors. Remember the former things of old. For I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my counsel from a far country. Yea, I have spoken it. I will also bring it to pass. I have purposed it. I also will do it. These verses show, again, a huge contrast between the idols and God. God has all the power. Who can you compare God to? Is there anything in heaven or on earth like God? No, there's nothing that is his equal. There's several calls here to listen to God and to remember what he's done in the past. And that is the key to trusting God in the present, remembering what God has done in the past. I don't know how many times the children of Israel were told to remember what God did at the Red Sea. If God can part the Red Sea for you, can God fix whatever problem you're going through right now? Yeah, God can and will take care of you. Bring this to mind. You ought to be thinking about what's happened in your country's past, what's happened in Israel's past, but then also what's happened in your past. Can you think of a time where God took care of you personally in the past? Well, then God will continue to take care of you. When it says here, act like men, I don't think it's contrasting with women. I think it's contrasting with kids. He's saying, grow up and listen to God. Grow up and put your trust in God. There is none like God. There are so many different religions and so many different idols, so many Americanized idols that we could put our trust in, and there is none of them like God. They're all empty promises and silent statues. They have ears, but they don't hear you pray to them. They have mouths, but they cannot respond to you, and they have hands, but they cannot work in your life. It says that God declares the end from the beginning. This is not simply knowing the future, which would be pretty impressive if God just knew the future. But God doesn't just know what will happen, he makes it happen. When God says that he will win, he's not just predicting his win, he's saying, I'm going to go do it. At the end, it says, I have purposed it, I also will do it. Predicting the future is impressive, but what if the future is a bleak one? What if you predict that you will lose? That's not great. Prophecy and fulfilled prophecy is probably the biggest proof of God's existence and the truth of the Bible. These things are impossible to predict. There were lots of fake prophets around. Many people have made many predictions throughout history. I think of early American history, there was a group called the Millerites, and this pastor said that he knew when Jesus was coming again. His name was Pastor Miller. So he said, everyone get on your white robes and climb on your roof so that you'll be closer to heaven and you're already wearing your heavenly garments. And God's going to come in 3, 2, 1. And there were hundreds of people across America who put on white clothes and climbed on the roofs. And they looked like absolute fools when Jesus did not come the minute that their prophet said he would. Jehovah's Witnesses have prophesied Christ's return about a dozen times before they gave up doing that. But you can look into that all throughout the 1970s and 80s, and I think a couple in the 90s as well. They kept on prophesying, oh, Jesus said he will return at this date. And then he didn't. False prophets. In the ancient world, the Greeks were especially famous for trying to prophesy the future, but they would do it in a really wacky way. They would prophesy the future in such vague terms that no matter what happened, they were correct. So there's this famous story of one of the heroes of old Turkey. His name was Croesus, King Croesus of the Empire of Lydia. And Lydia was a very powerful empire. They invented coins, metal coins, very powerful old empire. And bad guys come and attack them. I believe it was the Persians come and attack him. So he goes to the oracle at Delphi. And this is a very famous oracle. So there's these sulfur pits, all this weird noxious odors and gases coming out of a pit. And a priestess would sit on a stool and breathe these and say that she's getting inspiration from the gods or whatever. And the king Croesus said, should I attack? Should I try to make peace? What should I do? And the oracle said, if you attack, a great empire will fall. He said, great, I'm going to go attack him. Persia is a great empire. I'm going to go attack him. He attacked him and he lost. And everyone went, the oracle was right. A great empire fell. Lydia fell instead of Persia. Well, whoever won that battle, the prophet was right. Well, that's a dumb prophecy, isn't it then? God's prophecies are not like that. There are hundreds and hundreds of different prophecies about Jesus that he fulfilled when he came. Some of the most obscure things, like the exact town that he was born in. Some pretty amazing things, like he was born in a manger, but he was living in Nazareth, but he had to be born in Bethlehem, but he also had to take a trip to Egypt, and all sorts of hundreds and hundreds of prophecies fulfilling his birth and life and death and resurrection. These things could not have just happened. These are not stabs in the dark or guesses. God said he would send Jesus, and then he sent Jesus. He declares the end from the beginning. From the ancient times, the things that are not yet done. He says, my counsel will stand. That is, my will stand. When I say this will happen, then it will happen. When I say I will defeat the devil, that's not a hope. That's not, I hope I defeat the devil. I'm going to try. No, he said, I will defeat the devil. Period. It's done. I've beat him. And here is a wonderful prophecy that he gives. There is a man coming to do his will. This man is called a ravenous bird from the east, a man who does God's will, who executes God's order. Just in the very last chapter, chapter 45, you can read all about Cyrus, the king of Persia. This is pretty incredible. Chapter 45 talks about King Cyrus of Persia, who would release the Israelites from captivity in Babylon. Thing is, Cyrus won't be born for another 200 years. And the Israelites won't need rescuing for a good 130 years. Israel has not been enslaved yet. And Isaiah says, not only will you be enslaved, but you will be rescued, and you will be rescued by a man named Cyrus. And then in the very next chapter here, in chapter 46, he says that this guy's like a ravening bird from the east. Of course, Cyrus is from Persia. That's modern-day Iran. That is quite a bit east of Israel. So when God says, I will sell you to slavery for your sin, he will do it. And when God says, when you repent, I will rescue you, he will do it. He's even name-dropping. His name will be Cyrus. Pretty incredible. 200 years before this happens. Are you on the right side of history? When God comes, are you going to be one of the people who's looking forward to his return and who's on the Lord's side? Or are you one of the ones who fights against him? Because God says he will win. There will be a battle. No one's going to be on the fence. You will choose God or you will choose the devil. Which side are you going to choose? Because the winner, well, God says it's going to be him, and his counsel will stand. The idols could not save you, but God can. Hearken unto me, you stout-hearted that are far from righteousness. I bring near my righteousness. It shall not be far off, and my salvation shall not tarry. And I will place salvation in Zion for Israel, my glory. He calls them stout-hearted. That word stout means strong, valiant, but it comes from the word for bull, so strong like an ox. And he says, you might be strong like an ox, but you are far from righteousness. It doesn't matter how strong you are in this world's strength. Some trust in chariots, some trust in horses, but we will trust in the name of the Lord our God. God can defeat chariots and horses. He's on a completely different playing field. Would you rather have this world's goods and riches and power and authority, or would you rather have Jesus? He says, your problem is not that you're not strong enough. It's not that you're not rich enough. That's not your problem. Your problem is you are far from righteousness. But I can fix that problem. The people who are far from righteousness do not have a hope of making themselves righteous. In fact, it doesn't seem like they're even trying. They don't want to become more righteous. So God says, I'm going to bring my righteousness to you. You don't have any righteousness to bring to me, so I'm going to bring some to you. And it won't be far off. Sometimes we feel like God is far away. God says, nope, I'm going to be right there in your midst. I like how 1 John starts. It says, I'm going to talk to you about someone that I have touched. My hands have handled him. I'm not just telling you what Jesus said, but I was there in the audience. Jesus spoke to me and I'm going to tell you his words, but I also touched God. My hands have handled the word of life. What an amazing thing to be an eyewitness to history, to be right there. My salvation, my righteousness is not going to be far away. It's going to be right there in your midst. My salvation, you might think I'm taking a long time, but I will not dawdle. I will not tarry. I'm going to come rescue you with my salvation. I will save you. And then you will bring glory to me. Israel is my glory. They're supposed to bring glory to me. Now, because Isaiah's been talking about the captivity and enslavement in Babylon, I'm thinking a lot of Jews are thinking of salvation in purely physical terms. The enemy army will come and attack us. They'll carry us away to slavery. Then Cyrus is going to come and rescue us with his army, and he's going to defeat Belshazzar's army. You can read about that at the end of Daniel when Belshazzar has the writing on the wall and he gets defeated by the Persians. I don't think that Isaiah is talking about physical salvation here. I think he's talking about spiritual salvation here. He's just gotten finished talking about physical rescuing. Now he's talking about spiritual things. He says righteousness, righteousness, salvation, salvation. He's talking about fixing your heart, not just fixing your country. When we look at America today, America has a lot of problems. And there are different things that we could do to try to solve the problems. You know, our economy is not doing great. If you have some ideas to fix the economy, if there's a politician who has some ideas as to how to jumpstart the economy, okay, fine, go for it. But fixing the economy will unfortunately just give more Americans more money to spend in a sinful way. The biggest problems in America are not economic, they're not physical, they're spiritual. I would rather live in a very poor, weak country that loves God than a very rich and powerful country that hates God. Yeah, we have a very powerful military. None dare attack us. But militaries can be used for evil as well as for good. You know, we have freedom, and freedom's wonderful, but freedom can be used for evil as well as for righteousness. We have money in America. We're among the richest nations in the world, but money can be used for evil as well as good. None of those things can save America. None of those things can save Wiscasset or your family. What can save you and your family and your town and your country? Righteousness. Not the righteousness that we have, that we give to God, the righteousness that He brings to us. The righteousness that is from God. Romans talks about this an awful lot. We have nothing good to bring God, but God has an awful lot of goodness to give to us. It is a gift from God, nothing that we have to earn, because we can't earn it. And to be honest, most people are not trying to earn God's favor. Most people are trying to do what they want to do. We need God's righteousness, and hallelujah, He wants to give it to us. Who or what are you trusting today? That is, what do you think will give you a good life? There's many things in this life that people look to give them a good life. Everybody's working for the weekend, right? TGIF, so I can go out and drink some more with my friends. People turn to drugs. There's been a drug epidemic in New England especially. It's pretty terrible, the lengths that people go to for a nice feeling. What do you turn to when life gets hard? What do you believe will give you a good life? Idols won't do it for you. Nothing in this life will do it for you, but God will. Are you trusting in Him? He's not far off. He's not dawdling. He has set you on Zion to bring glory to Him. If you are trusting in God today, are you proclaiming it? Are you encouraging other people to trust God as well? Are you vocal about your righteousness? Isaiah is, and he got a lot of flack. Jeremiah was even more vocal about doing what's right in the midst of an even worse society a few decades later, and no one listened to him. He was the weeping prophet. I say no one. There were a few people who listened to him. I don't know what reaction you will get when you encourage people to trust God and exhort people to trust God. But we need to do that first for ourselves, second for our family, and then third for everyone around us. Trust in God. What does that look like? It looks like every day and in every way, I live for His glory. I do things that I know will please Him. You know it. You know what pleases God. You know what displeases God. You know how you ought to live. If you don't, well, start reading the Bible, start studying the Bible. Try this. Try to have a Bible verse for every aspect of your life. Does this action have a biblical mandate? Does this action please God? If so, where can I find that in the Bible? You need to ask God to set a watch over your lips. You need to check your Facebook posts, check your conversations with your neighbors, with your coworkers. Am I living a life that honors God? Am I living a life that would please Him? Could I imagine Jesus hanging out with me while I'm doing this activity? I was given that illustration as a young teenager. When you watch a movie, can you imagine inviting Jesus over to watch that movie? If not, maybe you shouldn't watch it, because God is there. He is holding you. What do you trust in? What do you glorify? If someone looked at your life, could they see Jesus in you? I hope so. Today, let's trust God. He can and will take care of you no matter what storm you're going through. Thanks for listening. You've been a great audience. See you later.